I do some software. I can't say I'm the world's best software engineer, but by training, it's um, I was more aerospace engineering and industrial engineering, and I don't know if you saw, I also have a law degree, licensed in Texas. So I did put some slides together. Let's see if I can find those.
How do you say your
It's Jeevan, like Stephen. Jeevan is the first name. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is switch over and show you the slides and show you everything. Okay, tell me when you can see the slides.
how do you hear me?
Pretty good. It seems a little on the soft side, the lower volume. I don't know if you're not close enough to your mic or if you can increase the output from your mic.
Headset on.
So,
I can see your charts up there.
okay. Okay. So, I just kind of put together a little bit of a agenda of, um, I guess, different topics that might be of interest for aircraft owners. And as you probably realize, all of this is not unique to a Grumman or even a Tiger. It's just generic stuff that could be used by any owner of an airplane, even if it's not a single engine, like the Grumman Tigers are. Um, the first thing I'll probably cover is purchasing. And just to give you some context and background, I was really not that interested in buying a plane. And then someone I work with and also who was a CFI, he kept kind of telling me, hey, the two of us enjoy flying. Why don't we buy a plane? And I said, well, I only want to make it for an economic reason. Lots of owners like to own a plane. And even if it doesn't make sense from an economic standpoint, there is value that you can't necessarily put a dollar value on of owning a plane and all the pleasure that comes with owning a plane, whether you own it individually or as a partner. But I told Dave, who was my instructor and also a friend, that I was only really interested from a pure economic sense. So, um, we kind of talked about it for a while, and then a couple of months later, he mentioned that his uncle was selling a Grumman Tiger, and if his uncle was interested to see if his nephew was willing to buy the plane. It was a 1978 Grumman Tiger, and so Dave came back later and said, "Hey, I got this plane, and we could buy it if you're willing to go in with me." And so I said, "Well, let me do the analysis to figure out if it's worth it." And from my perspective, worth it is as based on the flying that I'm doing, the number of hours per month, is it more economical to own a plane as two owners co-own it, or is it cheaper to rent a plane through a local uh, rental, airplane co-op? And so the first part of the analysis for me back in like 2008 when we ended up buying was just to kind of look, hey, is this something from just a pure economic perspective worth, so I need to find the chart. I should have had all this queued up. And I'm going to go through how I organized everything. But the first thing was, hey, is it worth buying or is it more economical to go ahead and rent? Um, So I think this is the spreadsheet, and I don't know, did I give you this spreadsheet? It's called financial planning.
Might have had
What
that,
is-
but
I can definitely post it, but this is the analysis I did, and maybe it's something that you or someone else might want. Uh, but it's to compare, owning and everything that goes through ownership, whether it's the hangar, whether it's the mortgage, whether it's the insurance, um, whether it's, the operating expenses, whatever it is, you've got to figure out how much you're going to fly if you're looking at it purely economically, and how does that compare per hour based on your expected usage with just straight out rental. And that's the analysis I kind of went through, and that's what's contained in this. And so originally it was David, my friend, he and I did the math, and I broke out, and I think I got a lot of these numbers that are in this spreadsheet based on, again, this is 2008 numbers, whether, how much would it be based on my hours of flight? How much would it cost me to own the plane based on usage? And I did the math and I told David, hey, just based on my usage, it's not going to work. It's more economic to just stay with the rental agency. And then, so we thought, okay, we need to increase the number. So the only way that the numbers matched, going rates of rentals and I think I was comparing it to a 172, was if we had four members. So we basically share the cost four ways. And you can see the elements that I put into the analysis, along with how many hours I would have to fly to break even. So basically, if I was only flying 2 hours per month, it was definitely in the red region. It made no sense if I was flying 2 hours a month to own the plane with all of the expenses fixed and variable costs for 2 hours. I had to get up to about 8 hours a month, 6 to 8 hours a month before I could break even on rental rates. So the only reason I'm going through all of this is might be something that might be of interest for those that are buying into a ownership agreement. And I won't spend it much time since Tom, it sounds like you already purchased. So you're either you value ownership or you did this on your own. But if anyone's interested, I can go through how I did this spreadsheet and how I figured out where the break-even point was for me to decide that it was cost effective to actually own versus rent. Do you have any questions about this? I know you already purchased, so it's kind of late for you. Um,
well,
Mm.
I've learned in the past if it's worth it.
You're, yeah, you're breaking up just a tad, but could you repeat the question?
I volume output. What I've learned in the past is if you break down like this, you never really buy it or lot by yourself.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I know lots of pilot friends, they value ownership, and you can't put a dollar value on that enjoyment that you get, just as if you like taking big vacations or you like buying a big house or you want a boat. There's value that you can't necessarily put a dollar value on. And so I'm not saying that anyone else, this kind of spreadsheet would help. But for me, if you're just looking at it purely as an economic decision, you got to decide um, whether it's worth it. And to be honest about it, I think when I went into it, I didn't put any value on ownership. It was just a pure economic decision. And now I kind of appreciate the ownership and the value that that brings and the ability that you can spend time and enjoy it beyond, just a pure rental. So I definitely see that calculus, if you want to call it that. And the way that I started back in 2008 was not with that, mind frame. But I'm sure there's others that are purely in a, an objective economic kind of decision-making process. And that spreadsheet that I just showed might be helpful. And for anyone that's interested in that kind of analysis that I went through, uh, I can repeat it for those that are interested. But obviously, Tom, you've already made the decision to buy, so that probably is somewhat moot. The other part that I'll mention about ownership is you've got to decide for several factors whether you want to own it as an individual or as kind of an informal partnership, or whether you want to create some sort of insulation for tax and potential liability. And as I mentioned, I'm a licensed attorney in Texas, not anywhere else, and I'm not interested in doing any kind of legal work for anyone. But if you are interested in that, I would seek out, a reputable attorney, or you could even do it yourself. There's private companies out there in every state that will help you incorporate what I decided that was best for us was a limited liability corporation, a LLC. I went through all the filings. I created an LLC with all the members. We came up with all the formality of the filings. We did the filing fees, and now it's a limited liability corporation, but that will protect us to some extent from potential liability on a personal level. Um, so that is another factor if that you may want to kind of research on your own within whatever jurisdiction you belong to and decide for yourself if you want to pursue that. And if you do, I would find a local attorney that can do that. Is there any kind of questions about maybe the corporate form, if that is something that you're interested in, on how you would do that?
Have an LLC for my business, Scale Dragger.
Okay.
That for my private airplane. Found it in
LLC. Yeah, there may be reasons why you want to separate it. Like if you got a separate business, you don't want to mix it and mix liability. So my recommendation to anyone is to either kind of research it on your own or find a good attorney, a reputable attorney close to you to kind of weigh your options, whether you want to do it any other way. Um,
I agree. But have them on my.
yeah. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's my connection or your connection, but you are breaking up a little bit where there's sections that I don't hear at all.
I understand. I how to improve.
Okay. Okay. So I think we went through, um, and I don't know if you want to kind of look at our agreement um, and how we operate, but I could spend a little bit of time on that if you're interested, just uh, the the agreement and the structure of how we operate the LLC, and that was all kind of boilerplate. So there was nothing magical about that. And then we had an appendix that describes specifically how we're going to operate the plane, who's responsible for what. And I can definitely send that to you if you want to kind of review it and figure out if you want to modify it for your own use, if you've got an LLC. But again, that's completely optional. I mainly wanted to kind of hit the elements that are of interest to you, Tom.
Yeah, we've set up an agreement. It's probably not quite. I'd like to see your.
Okay, so the LLC agreement, so that's the structure of how we operate the LLC, is kind of boilerplate. It's not specific to aircraft ops. What we did was create an appendix to that agreement that's specific to how we're going to operate. And I can show you some of that, and I can send it to you if you're interested. So how about we take that as the next step? So this is the appendix that we created to that main LLC agreement. And we kind of go through different sections about, insurance and casualty and who's responsible and who pays, to the structure of decision making, who within this ownership within the LLC, how the decision making would occur. There are, clauses in there about, who else can fly the plane, and then the usage and how the expenses will be shared as appropriate, both the fixed expenses like the insurance or the annual or the the mortgage, the hangar, or everything that's kind of fixed, how that would occur, and then the operating expenses like fueling. Oops. Did I hear a question?
I kind of lost you on the audio there, but yeah, I'd like to look. If you could send that to me.
Sure. Yeah.
The good part about mine is that my other owner is not a pilot yet, so he pretty much takes my lead on everything.
Right.
But I've shown him everything. He's signed off on everything.
Okay.
And this is the third airplane I've had in a partnership, but I've also had many not in a partnership.
Right. Yep, that completely makes sense. Kind of looking at the, I'll kind of overview a little bit. I think your mic is on. I'm getting a little bit of feedback. Might be better. Can you still hear me? Yeah.
I muted it. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So we kind of just discussed the fixed expenses, how that's shared, how the operating expenses are shared, things about basing where the plane is going to be based, about scheduling, the use of the log and how servicing is done, expenses related to being away from the base, wherever that plane is based, adding additional equipment, delinquencies related to, paying your fair share of expenses, whether that's fixed or operating, and then it's signed off. So I will send you all of that so you can kind of look at, and then you could, ping as many questions as you want. So if we went back to this one, I think that kind of covers the first two bullets. And I'll get to the logbook next, unless there's any questions about the first two items.
I do have one question.
Sure.
Did you guys buy it cash from each one, or did you have to finance any?
So we ended up financing, but obviously the mortgage company wanted I think 20% investment. So we basically, I think, collected between the four of us, maybe. So we bought in 2008, and I think the Grumman Tiger cost us 65,000, and I think we put maybe 15,000 down. So we split the 15,000 down as the upfront cost, and then we financed the remainder.
And there was no problem being financed with 4 people?
No. So we found a bank, and actually, I think they like more people on the hook. So so the more people they can sign up to go after, the better it is for them. And we had already set up the LLC, so I think, they were comfortable. But then we individually had to sign the loan.
Right.
So that we individually, not only the LLC, but the individual, were going to be held accountable if payment wasn't made. Any other questions kind of on the first two topics?
No, that was my only one.
Okay, so the next one is the logbook. Um, I will just, and I'll go how we manage all of this status, because my main goal, besides all of the legal and administrative things, is from accounting to operations to everything. I wanted it to be completely transparent. Everyone has full insight into the bank account, so everyone has access to the bank account that we set up for the LLC. They know where all the expenses are going and why, so that anyone can question, hey, I don't understand why this expense was made, or, this maintenance was done, or whatever. You definitely want a partnership, and an LLC is in some form kind of a partnership. Uh, you want a good working relationship, and a healthy relationship. But then the other part of ownership, which I'm sure everyone understands, is that you've got to have people that can work together. I'm not saying a certain personality is better than another, but whoever you accumulated into an LLC or some kind of informal partnership or whatever the structure is, you've got to make sure that your personalities kind of match. And for me personally, I always like, to have an environment that brings, somewhat diversity into, the management. You want somebody that's kind of a stickler for operations. You want somebody that's kind of a stickler for, financial accounting. So you want people that, are going to dig deeper in certain areas. And I think those checks and balances, I think generally has worked for other things that I've been involved in. And so this group, the original 4 that I described actually grew to 6 over the years from 2008. I think we added the 6th member maybe about 2 years ago. But generally, you want to make sure it's somebody that you're comfortable with, that, you're not going to have petty fights about, or you're not going to have, personality conflicts. But generally, they are people within this group. Like within this group, we've had CFIIs, CFIs, we've had A and P, and then just, from commercial rate-ins to instrument rate-in to, just private pilots. I think all that diversity has helped kind of create an environment that this thing is operated really well. So we were going to look at the logbook, which is this one. Close that one, I think. I don't know why that one didn't open. Okay. So this is probably one that you were trying to modify, right? That you probably have a bunch of questions about.
Yeah, I like your aircraft currencies and annual pedostatic altimeter. Those are all up there for record.
Yeah, yeah. So everything related to maintenance, what I wanted to do is have it incorporated into this dashboard. Um, so these are the ones from the Tiger. So, they have the overhaul, the annual, all of the things that are required to keep it legal. I put it on here. Um, uh, and then there was some other items that I added on, because I want to understand if there's something going on related to oil leakage, gaskets wearing out. So I want to track whether, based on what's being entered, if the oil consumption is deviating from what I say is normal. Um, this one is, the VOR check for IFR flying. I want to make sure every 30 days, I think it is, that there's a VOR check done by one of the pilots. And so that tracks that one. We have a Garmin 750 in there. Um, and we pay for, I think it's the Jeppesen data,
Yep.
the nav data and all the obstacle. And we want to be able to see clearly whether we're current or not current, and that someone has to go update the SD card. And then our mechanic over the years has always told us that we should try to fly um, at least 200 to 220 hours per year. If you don't fly enough, that's bad. If you
Yeah.
fly more, that's not necessarily bad. It just means you got more maintenance. But there is a minimum amount of flying just to keep everything lubricated and working and functional. And um, his kind of guidance was about 20 to 25 hours would be a good target for you to achieve. And so I wanted some kind of metric to track that, and that's this last one. These are all changeable. I just did it in Excel, and where that happens is all here. You kind of put in, so the overhaul is purely based on takt time. And so you enter in this entry what your TAC is for your next overall. Same thing with annual. That one is date based. And so it's whatever day your annual will expire. You put that there. The pedostatic check, that's every 24 months. And it's this EOM is end of month. So that's the date. The next pedostatic is going to be um, due. Altimeter is the same thing. Transponder is the same thing. The ELT, which I think eventually will go away, right? But the ELT inspection has a specific date. The ELT battery has a specific date. Uh, we have a screen, not an oil filter, and I think it's 30 hours. So this is a specific TAC number you'd have to put in there and update every time you do the oil change. And then the VOR check is strictly for IFR flying to make sure that you made sure that your VOR, your nav system is within the tolerances.
Right.
You also have the wing shoulder bolt, and that's based on a specific takt time. That goes there. Your nav data, every 28 days needs to be updated. And so the next one is due in just, I guess, 3 days. And then this last one was one that we don't need to track anymore. It might have been the prop, because I think we had an old prop that was susceptible to cracks, and so it had to be inspected, but it's not used. So this part of it is just a straight entry, whether it's dates or TAC hours. And then if you need to change this, this is where it refers to that other entry. So I'm looking at the overhaul. And I don't know if you're an Excel user, but this is basically kind of a formula that is going to turn this to a different color when you approach that end limit. So you don't have to understand any of this, um, because all that does is, I think on this one, on overhaul, I am going to turn it yellow. I think this one is within 60 days of the overhaul, the light will go from green to yellow. And so that's kind of like the threshold of the early warning that, hey, you're going to have to start worrying about the overhaul. And so I think it's hard coded, um, to do, um, I think it's 60 days. And so if it's greater than 60 days away, it stays green. From 60 days to 0 days, it goes yellow. And then after it's expired, it goes red. If it's expired, it just says it's expired. If it's yellow, it tells you how many days you got left or hours you got left. And if it's green, it still does tell you, if you look carefully, how much time you've got before that event occurs. So for me, I thought this because everyone, the way that I'm going to describe it, every time they fly, they need to enter this, just like on do you have a physical logbook that you enter your hours so that you can account for usage and payment of that usage?
We do. It's
This,
just
yeah,
handwritten.
it's handwritten. We have that same handwritten one, but then I require all the pilots, once they fly and they come back home, that they need to make this entry. And so they basically put today's date, and then all the pilots, the 6 of us right now, and then the mechanic, which gets charged to the LLC. Um, uh, you have to pick who, if it's the mechanic doing it and we know the mechanic did it, we'll log it for the mechanic. But otherwise,
Mhm.
it's the flyer, it is the start time on the wall, the end time. You can either do this as GMT or local time, however you want to do it. And then it'll auto calculate this. So this big long gobbledygook will basically figure out what the time difference is in decimal units and fractions. Um, and it'll account for, let's say you left at 11 at night, but then landed at 1 in the morning, from 2300 military time to 01, it'll do the math to figure out, okay, that actually was 1 day later, and then automatically fill this. So this column is auto done. And then this is just a straight subtraction. So
So
anything in the,
if I were to put my numbers in that page that you showed me to the right of the screen that you scrolled to, um, it would fill in the green areas up here with my numbers as opposed to yours?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
So I don't have to worry about this programming. I can do
No, you don't have
location.
to worry about. Yeah, yeah, you don't have to worry about any of that. As long as you're okay with these, this assumes every 2,000 hours, you're gonna get an overhaul. Every 12 months, you're gonna get an annual. Every 24, you're
Yeah.
gonna, do a pedostatic check, altimeter, and so on. If you're good with those, then all you gotta do is anytime you get a new annual, put a new date in here. Anytime you get overall, put a new tack there, and so on.
Okay,
And then it'll change these colors automatically.
cool. I mean, you're way above me in programming Excel. I have no idea how to do that.
Okay. And as you're configuring yours, just call me. I can give you my cell number, or we can do another, virtual meeting, and I can help you configure your version of this and get
Okay.
it going, so that it'll be much easier and smoother. And then I do the same thing with the pilots. Pilots, they got the BFRs and the medicals, and it's the same thing. You can, I basically created 6 spots, so you're not going to need as many spots, and you could basically use as many of the 6 spots as you want. but the BFR goes there and the medical goes there, and then it does the same thing. It'll tell you, I want to say the BFR is 30 days out and medical. So when you get to 30 days out on your BFR or your medical, it'll turn yellow and tell you how many days you got left. And then when it expires, it just goes expired. It doesn't tell you how many days because it doesn't matter how many days you're expired. And then when it's green, it'll actually let you know, how green you are, like you can see in these.
So how does each one of your pilots have access to this?
Oh, so it is, we use a free utility called Box, box.com. You can register, and I don't know if you saw here. So basically, these files all live in the cloud. And in the cloud, I created the Box account, and I give specific access to specific people through emails. And I say, hey, Joe Blow has access to access this cloud service. Box, I think, is free up to several gigs. And then after that, you got to pay. But for what we do, it's all free. That was the other, being an engineer, maybe not being a lawyer, but being an engineer, typically they're kind of on the cheap side, like accountants. And so everything I wanted to set up, I want it free. I don't want any kind of recurring costs. And so you can check with Box. The other one, I think there's Dropbox. Google has Google Drive. But Box was free, and if you check out box.com, there's a utility you can download. I don't know if you're a Mac person or a Windows person, but you can, either way, you can download basically an application. And then when it shows up as a folder, when I'm seeing, can you see this set of folders that I'm showing here?
Yes.
Those are all not local copies. They're all on the cloud. So when I look at this file and I modify it on the cloud, not locally on my drive. And so when the next guy comes and looks at this file, they're getting my mods and getting the current version. So
Okay.
in that sense, this logbook file is available to the people I gave access to, and they get real-time access to it.
Okay.
I don't know if you see this symbol right here, because I downloaded this means what I have on my local copy is not what's on the cloud. And so it wants me to click that, and then it'll sync it, and it'll grab the more current version of that file locally. And now you can see the symbols all went away, and the PCs have the same kind of deal. It'll tell you it's supposed to do it automatically, but sometimes it's kind of delayed. And if you see those symbols, I can help you with setting up the box if you want, and show you kind of the functionality of it, if that's of interest. But in this way, everything, whether it's bank records, whether it's maintenance logs, whether it's the accounting file, whether it's the logbook, how we do the refueling. I don't know how you do refueling, if you do it like a rental car where every time you fly, you got to fill it back up so that you keep the fuel kind of clean and independent. That was very inconvenient for us. So I came up with a scheme that I'll explain in a bit, of how you just fill up whenever you want, and then I prorate the fuel costs based on the TAC hours you individually flew, so that I can balance it all out and no one has to worry about filling up all the time.
Okay.
But
We bring it up to the tabs after everybody flies, so it always starts with 38 gallons, unless you're going on a country. And everyone's going to eventually have their own fuel card. We have a dedicated fuel tank here where I live. I'm in a aviation community, so I have my own hangar.
Right, right.
But these guys live in another aviation community, which is only 3 miles away from here, and they have a different type of fueling system, which is credit card based. Ours is user card based.
So So what I could explain is the way that I do it, which means you can fill up anywhere. You never have to worry about it. You have to enter it in that logbook. So I don't know if you saw, we didn't get through it. Besides, your wall time and your tack time, these blue columns are auto-filled. Anytime you fill up, you got to tell it how much gas you put in, how much the dollars were, um, and then it will calculate what the burn rate is, the actual burn rate. Uh, that still is a little bit of a manual process, and I'll get into that shortly. And then who the fueler was and whether they filled up to the full tops, not the tabs, or if they filled up somewhere else. The only reason that that is important is in order to make a clean financial accounting of the fueling and the cost and who owes what, it has to be to the same level. So if your level is the tabs, you could operate where everything is calculated based on filling back to the tabs. Or if you want to make it as the top off, so all the way to the top, this other spreadsheet will figure it all out to the penny. It'll say, Joe Blow flew, 8.9 hours this last cycle. This other Jane Doe flew 12.5 and everyone else. And then this is the total expenses on fuel. This is the total number of gallons. So total number of gallons needs to be prorated on the tack hours. So I do all the math, and then this other spreadsheet I'll show you will tell everyone, hey, you paid this much, but you owed this much. And the difference, either positive or negative, either you owe someone or someone owes you to balance the books. And it'll do it to the penny. And it's all pro rata based on tack hours, gallons, and dollars that it cost.
I notice under your gallons per hour there for Buck on 7.4, there's a little red or triangle in the upper left-hand corner. What does that mean?
This little,
Yes.
can you see it? That's an Excel thing. It automatically does it, and it is a little flag that shows up, and I don't know if you can see this little
Yes.
triangle. If I click it, what it's telling me is that it's kind of interpreting all of the formulas, and it sees something different in this cell than the cells above. And really you can ignore that because there are specific reasons why there's a difference here versus, somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll get into the details of all of that. But what you'll notice also in this calculation is I need to know the FU is fill up. If it's a fill up, you put an X here. So if I type here and I put an X, it's going to automatically, and that is an indicator to the spreadsheet that I filled up, that it was not just to the tabs or some other, random fill up, not all the way to the top. And the way, if you're going to do it mathematically, is it has to be to the same level between a span. So the way that the calculation occurs, at least for the gallons per hour burn rate, is it's got to be from a fill up. So this fill up right here. So right after the fill up all the way, so it averages all the way down to here. Even though there was fill up here, the average was done all the way to this fill up.
Mm-hmm.
And then this one, oh, I think it's because he didn't actually put his name there. That was a mistake he did. So that might be a good example. So this gallons per hour, I've been meaning to automate, but it is a manual process. If you're interested in gallons per hour, for me, it's important because it shows some mechanical either some kind of a leak in the fuel lines or something that the engine is consuming a lot more gas than what's typical. That's the only reason that I'm tracking this gallons per hour metric. But the way that I've done the spreadsheet up to now, and I've been meaning to improve it, but I just haven't had the time to automate it, it's all manual. So, so me as kind of the administrator, I have to kind of do that on my own manually. Um, and I can show you how I do that. If you're not an Excel person, you might say, "Hey, this is not something I want to mess with." Um, is it something you want me to show you how I manually do, or
No, that'll
this
go over
doesn't?
my head, I'm sure.
Okay, okay, then I'll skip this. Then this column will not auto-populate for you. Just know that. But the nice thing is, I don't know if you see these tabs here, they're different sheets in Excel. If I
Yeah.
go to fuel consumption back from 2008, we see the trend in. We see when things are changing as far as fuel flow. Either the guy's not leaning enough, or there's some, like we've had fuel leaks before, and through these metrics, this one is based on TAC hours, and this one is average. And these individual data points are individual flights, and this solid line is averaging over like 30 flights or 30 days, or I forget how I set it up. But you can see the trend in,
Yeah,
and you will not get this if you do not do this column. And again, it's a personal column. Maybe you've got a engine analyzer and um, it's not something you need. So I would ignore this gallons per hour column um, for yourself.
okay.
But if you want to have the ability to just fuel as you want, you don't have to fill to the tabs, you don't have to fill anywhere, uh, and you want to be able to account for what everyone owes based on the fact that you're not all filling to the tab after every flight, you will want to fill these two columns, the quantity that you filled and the fuel costs.
Okay,
Um, the oil and the oil added is the same thing. It is purely for finding oil leaks. Um, and this is the initial oil. So every time the guy gets in the plane, as part of the pre-flight, he'll figure out how much oil was in there, and then if he had to manually add, how much was added. And then there's this oil consumption, and it kind of shows this was before the overhaul, and you can see our mechanic said that it should not burn more than about 0.23 quarts per hour, and that's where the red line is. And
Mhm.
as we bought the plane, it wasn't well maintained before we got it, and you can see that it over time was starting to trend up, and then we got the overhaul, and then it all dropped down. We found leaks in different places, and that's why it started really well, and then it kind of trended up. These are individual flights,
Mhm.
uh, and then this is that same kind of 30-day average, so you can kind of filter out the noise that's going on. But we found a recent leak, some gaskets, and that's why it's starting to drop again, the oil consumption. Um, so if you don't fill these two columns as needed, you're not going to get that column.
Okay,
Um, and then the fueler, again, that's only important if you're going to be wanting to reconcile fueling. But if you're always, we started off where we said every time you fly, you better fill it back up so that you pay for your own fuel. But the drawback for that is our home base was not always the cheapest for
yeah,
fuel. It was never the most expensive, but we could save $1 a gallon just flying to another airport close by.
mhm.
Uh, and so that encouraged people to try to find cheaper gas and then not have to worry about, filling up when they got back,
Okay,
or even filling up after every flight, because the math will figure out what everyone owes at the end of the day. And and so this column is who the fueler is and whether they fill to the top or somewhere else. And then we put a remarks thing in there. Did that kind of make sense? I'm not going to go into the details on the parts that you're not going to use. But
No,
as far as
I'm impressed with your level of ability to program this. It's way above me, but now that you've done it, I guess I don't have to. I appreciate it.
yeah, you don't have to. As I said, don't be hesitant at all. If when you're setting up your own spreadsheet, you go, hey, I can't do this, or I have a question, I'm more than willing to help you out. And you send me your spreadsheet, this spreadsheet updated, and I'll clean it out for you and send it back, and then it'll be good to go. And
Yeah.
I think over a little bit of time, like all the other guys, the other 5 guys, they don't all understand the workings of this. They just know the part they need to do, and then I cover the rest.
Can these guys access this from their cell phone via the cloud?
You can, but trying to update this through the cell phone is kind of an eye test. Most of them go back home and log in through their computer and get the full screen of this and easily type this in. It takes them 2 minutes to enter their entries. And then pay whatever. The other thing is it automatically calculates what you owe to the kitty, the operating kitty. Our kitty is expecting $25. That's this 25 here, and I can change that for you. We started at $15 an hour. So this is the amount of money per TAC hour, or the prorated amount of that hour you used, or whatever, that we want to set aside for the overhaul, for the oil changes, for the oil, everything that wears and tears on the plane needs to be set aside. So no one has to write a check when something happens, like the overhaul or an oil change or whatever the operating expense. We, for our plane, have inched up to $25 an hour. So in our operations, our spreadsheet for fueling will figure out how much you owe for your fueling, and if you overpaid or underpaid, and who owes you what. But besides that, you have to pay the $25 per hour into the kitty.
So we don't have that. We just the engine has 160 hours on it. I can tell you, we will never get to close to the TBO on that, or even halfway, before we sell it.
But the problem is, I don't know if it is a problem, but let's say you are flying 20% of it,
Right.
the other person is flying 80, you're depreciating that plane because you're going towards the overhaul. This accounts for that.
Okay.
But it's completely up to you how you want to do it, whether you don't want to worry about it. So how do you do like oil changes or tire changes, or alternator goes out or fuel pump goes out, or you just each equally pay your half of what the fee is? Here, the operating expenses all come out of the kitty.
Okay.
So the more you use it, the more you pay, because the more you're wear and tear in it, the tire or the oil change. So this, from an economics standpoint, is a little fairer, but I'm not suggesting anyone change the way they do it. It's just, if you want to do it this way, this is the way to kind of normalize it based on usage.
So when you brought in a few extra people, or even when you go to sell, how did you determine what you charge these new people?
So everyone gets charged the same, and so now there's 6 people, everyone owns 1/6 of the plane. So when we sell the plane, if you look at back in the LLC agreement, everyone will make 1/6 of the profit. So we probably have 35,000 left on the mortgage. We got the Garmin 750 in there. We've got a really nice paint job. We got leather on the inside. We've got a JPI engine analyzer. We've got the ADS be in and out through a Garmin. I forget what that is. That's like a GTX, or I forget what it is. We've got real nice avionics in there. So I don't know what it's valued at. I would guess around 100 if I had to guess. I've seen planes on the on that user group that are they list it at 120, and it has nowhere near the amount of avionics we have. So again, whatever, let's say at the end of the day, we're going to swap out owners individually over time. And maybe at some point in the future, we'll all say, hey, we're done. We want to cash out, or we just keep adding and subtracting owners. But at the end of the day, if we owe, let's say 10,000 in the mortgage, and the plane is worth 100,000, then that's 90,000. We divide that by 6, and that's how much everyone gets a check for. And then the kitty is the same way. The kitty that we have, the bank account, will get divided. Right now we have 20,000 in there, mainly to cover the next overhaul. We're about, I want to say about 1,100 hours into the 2,000
Okay.
of the overall. So we still have a ways to go. But that kitty not only saves towards the overhaul, that kitty also saves for insurance. We're paying about 1,500 for all 6 pilots for insurance. And I think that's just I don't know if there's a deductible on that, just to tell you the truth, or maybe $500 deductible on a casualty. That covers the overhaul, not the overhaul, the annual. I'll show you that all in a second. So when those major milestones happen, we don't cut checks. That comes out of the kitty. And I have a different spreadsheet that kind of figures out, are we ahead of the game or behind the curve as far as enough savings to cover these routine maintenance or the annual, or the hangar. We pay $495 a month on the hangar. It's a private hangar with a electric door, insurance and everything else. So maybe eventually you might be interested if you keep adding owners to kind of make it a little bit more structured and fair. But again, that's completely something that you guys should decide for yourself how you do that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so all of this kind of made sense?
Makes sense.
Okay. So then, yeah, I think I dated that one thing. The next thing is the accounting sheet. So I think I gave you this thing. So anytime there's an expense, it needs to be entered, and it's just one long spreadsheet. So you can see over the 14 years, we've got like 3,400 entries. Uh, Anytime a person flies, that other spreadsheet tells you how much you owe for that portion at $25 a TAC hour. So like Soto flew those TAC hours, and the spreadsheet said he owed 850. And then within a day or two, he would get in and transfer that amount into the kitty. This is what the actual balance is. And then this is what's cleared through the bank as of the last statement. And I'll show you how all that works. But so every time anyone flies, they make the entry and they put in as much as that other spreadsheet said that they need to put in based on their usage. Like the hangar, anytime there's a inflow into the account or outflow, it needs to be put in here. And over those 14 years, we've balanced to the penny every month. So whatever the expense is, and this whole spreadsheet is available to everyone so they can interrogate it. Everyone has full access to the bank account so they can verify what's over there is what's over here. So that's kind of getting back to that, transparency that I wanted to ensure. We did create different categories. So if you look in here, there's a whole bunch of categories. So if there's a specific expense that needs to be kind of categorized as a certain type of expense, So I don't know if that's something you're interested in. The only reason that we track it is for this thing. So this other tab that's there called cost averages, it automatically calculates this. It says over the whole long period, we've paid 19,000 in insurance. That works out 1,300 per year for everyone. So, you know, you divide by six is how much of your money went to insurance. Um, the maintenance, the hourly maintenance has averaged to $2.96 per hour. Obviously, it makes no sense per year because it depends on how much you flew that year. But that's the total maintenance on the hourly, and the variable is, you know, you've got, um, you know, a magneto that went out, or exhaust system that went out, or a cylinder went out. So this over the 14 years is how much we've spent. And if you break it down into per year or per hour, I collect in that $25 per, um, I collect 3,000 per year is my target. So out of that $25, it's building up towards this 3,000 that I want to collect from everyone based on usage. The annual, these are the total costs of the annuals, and this is how much it worked out per year. I don't know if you're getting those kind of numbers, but that's our average over those 14 years. Avionics upgrades. Um, I don't think this is a total accounting because the GTN, I need to look at the numbers. We got that installed in 2012, a GTN 750. It's a Garmin touchscreen.
Right.
They're really sweet. I want to say we spent with installation like 23,000, and then we've got the other. Um, you can probably buy used ones now, like dirt cheap. Installation, I think, cost us around 3,000 to get it installed. So I need to check that number, but if you wanted to break it into an hourly, I mean a yearly. Oh, maybe it was that
Yeah.
one is listed under upgrade, but I forget whoever clicked it either put it in one of those buckets. But that's how it figures it out. And if you don't pick a category, then it doesn't fall into one of those buckets. This is who we're paying to, either one of the owners, like the names, or like this is our bank, it's a credit union, and then the amount, and then this is auto-populated. The actual balance, and then the cleared balance. Do you reconcile your accounts, like your personal accounts, every month, or do you just look at the statement and go, oh, yeah, it looks good, and you move
I
on?
don't do it. She does a pretty good job at it.
Okay, so if you want to reconcile, and I was telling you that we reconcile every month when the statement comes out, and that's what this cleared column, I don't know if you can see the word
Yeah.
cleared.
Yeah.
And then this number that I put in, it doesn't matter what you put in, it'll reconcile, but I put the month that it was reconciled. So the last time was June, the 6th month. And so you basically put the 6, if I look at the June statement, every time I see it on the statement, I put a 6 there because it's June. And then once I put a 6 in there, this column is going to match. So after I put all the 6s in for every item that cleared through the bank, this number right here should match what's in the bank statement. And if it doesn't, and it always does to the penny, I know there's some kind of, either someone forgot to make a deposit or something happened where there was some error.
Do you have any delinquency in your guys paying?
No, what typically happens is, you know, this is, I was telling you, we've got the monthly payments, and the monthly payments are 285. We started off at about 200, but we were in a hangar, community hangar that was only 250, and we were at 250 rental hangar for the whole time till about 4 months ago when they kicked us out because a new owner came in and wanted to put their own planes in. And so the only option we had was a private hangar with, it was a very nice modern hangar. with a electric door open and close, and electricity in there, it jumped to 4.5. So we actually doubled our hangar expense. And if you just do the math real quick, an extra $250 for 6 people, that's $40 extra per month per person. And so we used to have it as 240. But I once we moved to the new hangar, I did the quick math and I said, we're going to have to put in 285. The reason I went to 285 is that the guys want to get a Garmin G5 installed, 2 of them, to replace some of the vacuum systems. And I said,
Yes.
we need to start saving a little bit towards that. We've got enough in the kitty to cover upfront costs, but we need to get used to paying a little extra to have it pre-funded. But I think our next move, we just had a cylinder repair, which cost us about, with the installation, I think 2,500 for one cylinder. So we had a little bit of a hit, but I think some of the guys are going to start looking for avionics shops to put the G5, 2 of them in, and replace our vacuum system.
Yeah, the way with 2 people, the way we do it, the way the contract we wrote up says that no avionics get improved unless both people agree.
Yeah.
Then it just split the cost. So
Yeah, we have the same thing in our, if we went back to that LLC agreement, including the appendix, is if the expense is less than $300, any member can commit it to. So if it's a 300 or less, but you're going to get scrutinized if you bought something no one else agrees to. But generally, even under the 300, we've got a text group where all 6 pilots are on the same group. Like when we moved into this new hangar, one of the guys said, "Hey, I think we need a fan in there," because the mechanic was in there daily working on the cylinder and was burning up because of the Texas heat and was killing them. And so one of the guys said, "Hey, Home Depot has a industrial fan, $200." And legitimately, he could have just gone out, bought the $200 fan, put it in, and extracted that $200 back and put it on the ledger. But everyone's courteous enough, even under the 300 limit, they'll let everyone else know and let them complain or disagree if there is an expense. But anything above 300, I think what we said in the agreement, if I remember right, is 5 out of 6 have to agree.
it's $50 a person, 300, but you go
Yeah,
above,
yeah,
it's not much.
yeah. So it's not much, but we want to make it fair to everyone. So we've got the powered tow bar. We bought other things. And I think we've always let everyone know, no matter what the expense, hey, I think we need this. And I know it's under 300, but I'm letting you know before I buy it.
Yeah.
So it's worked out well. Any questions about this? The one other scan that I do when I account is, and this is purely manual, is for that month. So you can see we were in May, the 5s, and then we get to the 6s. I'll just do a quick scan. This is where we put the GPI in, and we paid the avionics shop $600, looks like, to install it. Yeah, I think that's what that was. Is since I've got the TAC hours, I make everyone enter into the bank account when they transfer that amount for their usage. So this Jason, when he used it for those TAC hours, and the spreadsheet said he owed $31.25.
Mhm.
When he enters it in the memo of the bank account, he has to put those, Jason TAC and those numbers. And that way there's some traceability between the deposits. And more importantly, when I get here, I just do a quick scan and make sure there's no hours that are missing from the TAC. So as you can see, that flows correctly, And so it's just a quick, takes me 10 seconds for that month to make sure there's not like a gap missing where someone didn't enter it here. And either, well, we haven't had any intentional, but any mistakes in entries. And so it helps me determine that there's nothing missing from the entries. And then I also make sure that the 6 people have the entries for every month. So the 285, these are the 6 people, and I want to make sure there's 6 entries every time I reconcile to make sure that's not missing either.
Good.
I know we've gone over the hour, and I don't mean to overload you, and we can do a part 2, or I can keep going. It's completely your call.
Well, if you would send me these Excel files, I will start populating them. And then when I
Okay.
run into a question, then I'll get back with you. We can go from there.
Yeah, but not to alarm you, but there's lots of other spreadsheets involved in this too that are also all optional. And all of this, I think I put into the Google Drive, so you should have access to all of this. Obviously, you don't want all our data. So
No.
what I thought I did was I cleaned them all out. So basically reset them all, and then I dumped it on that the Google Drive to allow you or anyone else to download it and start from scratch on your own.
Okay, how do I get that Google Drive? I've only done it a couple times, so.
Okay, so let's see. I thought I had
I think I did, and I think I got them from there, but I'm not sure how to get back there.
yeah, it's in the Facebook group, and I think there was like the Google symbol. So let me see. I'm not a big Facebook user, but there's got to be a way to find that group again. It's called Grumman something, right?
Yeah, it's over here. You got groups on the left side.
Okay.
Yeah. You got it.
So I gotta find
You
my
just
post.
scroll down, you'll see your post pretty soon.
You see this, right?
I see you scrolling down.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, it's right here, I think. So I think this is the thread, and I need to look at all comments. I went too far, or I didn't go far enough.
That's me, by the way. Biden is a cheetah.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I don't know what your politics are, but I do that to piss off the liberals.
Yeah, to tell you the truth, I lean right. I've always voted Republican, but I don't mean to um, put you off um, but I'm not a Trump supporter. So I didn't go as far right as Trump, but I'm definitely more fiscally conservative. There's probably some social issues I kind of lean a little bit the left, but I've never voted left. And I definitely wouldn't have voted for, and I did not vote for Biden. But the way I always look at it is everyone has their own, preferences. I'm not here to, convince anyone to see it a different way. It's like religion. You're not going to convert anyone, or at least I'm not going to convert anyone trying to tell them my point of views.
That ship sailed. You cannot convince anybody to change their mind anymore.
Yeah. It is definitely much more polarized than I ever remember. I can't say I was ever into a lot of politics or political discussions, even though I have my own personal views. And, but just seeing the social media and other things, it seems like normally you would think it's going to be a bell curve, you know. And so there's kind of a synergy between most views, but the impression I get recently, it's 2 bell curves. You got a camp way on the right, and you got a camp way on the left, and very little in the middle.
Yeah, I'd say
That's
it's
just
2 parallel lines.
yeah. So I'm doing something wrong here. I don't see all of the posts. Oh, here, I think this is it. So it's
Oh,
this one
great.
right here. Yeah.
I'll have to go
So
look.
in there, you have, I think everything. I don't think you have that other spreadsheet that I use to kind of, um, rationalize what a good economic decision was on buying a plane or not buying a plane.
Yeah.
It sounds like it's too late for you anyway because you bought a plane.
I,
But you might be able to.
like I said, I've had 15 and I realize there is no rationalization to buy a plane literally anymore.
Oh yeah,
On it, you buy it. There's no
yeah,
economic.
yeah. It's like owning a boat or owning a castle or owning. It is. There's no way to make it cheap. But the way that I rationalized it is, hey, I love to fly, and I know I'm going to fly. Is
Yeah.
it cheaper for me to just rent from a rental agency with all the baggage that comes with, like maintenance is shoddy or availability might not be there? I didn't put any dollar value to that. I just looked at it. Hey, how much is it going to cost me per hour to rent a 172 or a Tiger? And then how much am I flying? And if I broke that down into how much owning a plane is per hour of my usage, which I think I was estimating I would get about 6 hours, 5 to 6 hours a month.
Yeah.
And the only way 5 to 6 hours a month was going to break even is if we got to 4 people. If you counted all of the expenses, hangars, um, insurance, all the fixed maintenance, insurance, everything else, and then you broke it down to an hourly rate. Once you got to 6 people and you flying, no, four people, 6 hours of flying per person, that's when it became cost effective, just from a pure economic, not availability, not hey, I don't know what your experience has been, but when I've rented some of the rental places, you get there and it's like a lot of the equipment's not working and it's kind of torn up. So I didn't put any value on that. I just looked at it.
What
Um,
steers the whole thing for me is that I have a hangar attached to my house. So if I don't have an airplane,
oh,
I've got a
right.
3,000 square foot empty box out there. So
Right, right. So you got free storage. Yeah, that's a nice perk because again, we're paying $500 uh, for just a T hanger fully covered with a door. But it fits our plane and maybe a little bit of extra stuff we can put on the sides, but that's it. And it's not air conditioned.
well, I've got a spare
Okay.
plane and an RV in there. So, and all my tractors and stuff so
Oh,
it's already amortized because I paid for it when I built the house 25
right,
years ago. But
right. Yeah, no, you're in a lot better situation than us. So I showed you where it is here. If you want, we can go back to this spreadsheet and I can kind of show you what's remaining, and then you can decide whether you want to hit it today or another day. So I went through the logbooks.
Mhm.
I didn't go through any of the account. Well, I did go through the account reconciliation of how you enter it all in the logbook and how you use the number and you put a number next to each one that cleared through the bank and you verify that the cleared amount matches what the bank account is. You can do all of that like with QuickBooks or Quicken, but again, you got to pay for that. And on top of paying for it, um, which I already paid for Quicken. The bad thing is not everyone else would get access to it because they all need Quicken then, and we need to share, the Quicken file. And
Right.
that's why I decided to make it Excel where everyone has Excel or a viewer that can look at Excel. So that's the account reconciliation, and I kind of went over that. The fuel reconciliation is how you account for everyone's usage and what everyone owes for fueling. I didn't get to any of that. The
I won't need,
forecasting, what's that?
I won't need the fuel just because we'll all have our own individual fuel cards and we will be
Right.
billed to our own addresses.
Right, but then you always got to fill to the same amount, like the
True,
tabs.
true.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know where you're based, whether fuel is cheaper at your base or surrounding airports. But for us, because we originally did it the way you do it, except instead of the tabs, we did it to the tops to fill all the way. It just added time. You always had to go do the fueling at the end of your flight, where now you just go straight to the hangar if you want to.
Yeah.
And then you can also get the cheaper gas. In Houston area, Baytown, sometimes again, is $1.50 cheaper than our home base. And so that could add a fair amount of operating expenses. But again, if you decide later, hey, we might want to go to this approach, just ping me and I'll walk you through it. The forecasting is, if you're not doing a kitty, this forecasting is all related to making sure your kitty is fully funded to all your expenses. And I've got a kind of like a financial forecasting to kind of figure out whether you're in the right spot or if you're under or over where you should be in your accounts. I think I already went through the logbooks, which is the same thing up there. I think I went through the maintenance, which was that dashboard at the very top. I think I went through the diagnostic metrics, which was like the fuel consumption, the burn rate, and the oil consumption. I think I sent the weight and balance, which was customized to our plane, so you could put your moment arms and your weights
Okay.
and customize it.
What about that plane scheduling? That's an interesting one to me because we're just going to swap each month. You know, somebody will have the lead. You get first choice of it if you have the lead. If
Right.
the other person wants to use it, they just call the lead and see if they're using it.
Right. Here, this is much more convenient, free also using Google. So you got to register for a Google account.
Mhm.
And so let me jump to that one. Um, put it there so I know how to get to it. You can still see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
Google
so if you go to Google and you go to Google Calendar, so you hit that little grid. This, if you're logged into your Google account, will have all your Google calendars. Again, this is completely free. So you create a Google account, you go to that, and then I created a calendar called N4513N, which is our tail number, and that's the calendar you're looking at. And so anytime anyone wants the plane, they just come in to their, through a browser to Google. But what's much more convenient is Google has a calendar app. I think it's Google. Yeah. So let me show it to you. Let me know when you can see the screen. Maybe not. I don't know.
I can see it. It's not real big. Let me click you big here.
Okay.
Let's see what color.
So,
Show me again.
yeah, I think the light is too bright because when I'm looking at it on the screen, it's just
It's
whitewashed.
all washed out.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, if you go, are you using an Apple or a Windows machine? I mean, Android on your phone.
Got an iPhone.
Okay, if you go to iPhone, tell me if you can look at the chat. So, have you used Teams before?
No, this is the first time I've used Teams. We usually do Facebook.
Or Facebook? Okay. So if you look on your screen, do you have something along the top that says chat, like people, chat, reactions, rooms, camera, mic, share?
You talking
See
about
that
on
on?
my computer or my iPhone?
Yeah, on your computer, like
Uh,
as part of this Microsoft Teams app, kind of
uh,
like the Zoom.
I don't see anything that says that. Up the top, I've got Microsoft Teams, Edit View, Windows Help.
Okay, and not one called chat.
No.
You don't see a tab called chat. Yeah, I don't as a guest, I don't know what you get access to, but if you go into the App Store and you go and search for Google Calendar,
Doing
it
it now.
will, Google Calendar, it's an app in the App Store, free app.
Okay, I see it.
Yeah, if you download that app and then you have to log into that app. And then when you log in, all of the calendars, your Google calendars will get synced in. And so hopefully you'll just have one calendar, which you can name it whatever you want, whatever your tail number is, or however you want to label your group. So give it a name.
Okay,
And then from the app, you get that same view, but it's all on your phone. I think it's just let me try this other thing.
I already have a Google account, so it does come up.
Yeah. Does that look a little bit cleaner? I turn the
Yeah, but mine
the
doesn't
light.
look that.
Yeah. So here with the Google app, I can look on my phone right away and find out who's got the plane if they have it. And I can click on this app and click on a window like today at 10 o'clock tonight. I can click
Yeah.
it and I can punch my name in and I can say how long I want the plane. And now everyone instantaneously has access to the plane schedule. So our rule, if we went back to the LLC, is you're free. First come, first serve. Whoever gets the spot, it's your spot. The exception we make is if you want it for more than 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
you have to send a message to everyone and say, hey, I want it on these days. Does anyone have a problem? If one person says, I got a problem, then they can't get it for 3 days. Otherwise, 3 or more days, hey, I want to take it to Oshkosh. And we want to encourage people to, get more use. So unless you just have a heartburn about the time, the dates that they want, and if everyone gives the thumbs up, then they go in here and then they punch in and block out the plane for, the week or the 3 days or whatever they want. We also, we have a maintenance lead who organizes with our mechanic,
Mm-hmm.
all the maintenance, whether it's oil change, the cylinder work, any of the routine work. And so if he knows the plane is going down, he'll punch it into the calendar so that everyone can see, oh, I can't book it, this Tuesday and Wednesday because the plane's going to be down with the mechanic. So it's nice that you get it all, and you get it on your app, and you get it on your computer, wherever you want, and it's all live. So as soon as someone clicks and reserves it, it's blocked out for everyone else.
So does everybody have to log in with your Google
No,
account?
no. You set up the account, and then with Google, you invite who you want access to that calendar. So you basically send them an invite. So you don't have to give out your passcode and your user ID. When you set up that account, when you log into Google, there'll be a thing of add in people who have access to your calendar, and you get to decide, do they just have view access or do they have edit access? Can they modify the calendar? And so I give full edit access to the other 5 guys.
Okay, I see it, and it gives you a chance to put it on the iCloud or iCloud system account.
Yeah, this is all on the cloud. It's so it's not just on your computer. Everyone that's given access, whether it's through a computer, through a phone, through a tablet, through anything, would access the data from the cloud, and it would be a real-time data. So, 30 seconds before they got on, you went in there and blocked a timeout. Well, that'll show up when they look at it on their phone or their iPad or their computer.
Great.
So that was a very nice feature using a free service out of Google.
Good. Well, I think I've taken enough of your time, and you got me going on 99% of it.
Sure.
And, let me get your phone number.
Yeah, 713-444-9136. I do have a robo killer on it. So the first time you call me, it's going to send you to voicemail. Just leave a message, just say who you are. As soon as I call you back or put you in my contacts, then it's free open. It'll ring on my phone. But
Okay.
I don't know about you, but for a while there, I was getting like 10, 15 robocalls a day, and I got tired of it.
I just don't answer it and it goes to voicemail, and there's a pretty nasty voicemail that drives people away. So,
Oh, okay. The last thing I would tell you is the box. So I
yeah.
told you about Google. Go to box.com and kind of snoop around there. It's pretty simple to use. It's all on the cloud, and you'll have more space for free than I think you'll ever use. Set up the account, and then when you looked at this folder, this whole thing is on the cloud. It's not, there's a copy of it locally, but the active files are all in the cloud. So this allows everyone to have real-time access, whether it's the shortage calculation. I think I was telling you about forecasting whether the account has enough money or not. That's in there. The logbook I already showed you. The fuel reconciliation we didn't get into, but you said you didn't need. And then the accounting sheet, which you saw. And then all the bank statements from all the way back in 2008. Every month's in there. And everyone has full access to it. The insurance policies are in there. We have different, checklists that we put in there. The administration of the limited liability corporation, they're all in there. Manuals, whether for the GTN or so everyone has an electronic copy if they want. There's the weight and balance one and a whole bunch of other things. But all of this is on the cloud through Box and all for free.
How long did it take you to set all this up?
I gradually built it over those 14 years, but I started definitely the most important was that accounting sheet and the logbook. And so I worked on those first two. The box we switched to about a year ago because Google had this really nice kind of website that they would host for you to be able to manage an interest together with other people, like a company or a knitting society or whatever it was called. Google, I forget what it was called. Google Sites, I think. But then they changed it, and they said that service was going away, and I couldn't find a convenient way. And then I found Box, and so Box was so convenient because it's just like the data is locally just on your computer, but it actually is on the cloud, and it works much better. So Box I kind of developed over time. We don't keep a lot of receipts, but if you could create a folder in Box for receipts if you wanted to.
Good. Well, again, I appreciate this, man.
Sure.
Let me just read back your phone number, make sure I got it right. 713-444-9136.
Yep, that's it.
Right.
And then just shoot me a text or give me a call with questions, but hopefully you can get going. And then over time, if you expand the way you want to do it with fueling or, this Kitty account and setting that up, I'll help you as far as the administration. We created a LLC, and so with the LLC, we were able to open up a bank account in the name of the LLC, and then all the money is not in someone's individual account. It's in the LLC's account, so it's owned by everyone. So, plain way to do it.
Thanks again, man. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, hopefully someday we'll get to go flying together.
All
If you're
right.
ever in Houston, let me know.
All right, we're up in Granbury, if you know where that is.
Is that,
Southwest of Fort Worth.
Oh, okay. My daughter is a nurse at UT Southwest in Dallas.
Yes.
And she went to college at Texas Women's, which is north of, it's in Denton.
Yeah.
So I used to fly up to Denton a lot, but now I fly to Grand Prairie or Redbird, which is Dallas Jetson or Dallas Executive. Yeah.
You flew right over our place going up to Women's College, but we're right on the end of Lake Granbury where the dam is. It's easy to find.
Okay. Yeah. hopefully we can grab some coffee at least someday.
Come on up, I'll buy you a burger.
Okay, take care.
Thank you very
Definitely
much.
reach out if you have questions. Yeah, no problem.
Bye-bye.
Take care.